Hi, I'm Ali Patterson. On this episode of FinTech Finance, we look at the world of innovations and future technology ahead of Sibos this October and off the back of FinTech Week in London last month. We spoke with some of the attendees, including Authentics and MyCard. But first, I spoke with Nationwide about innovation.
2.5 years ago, thereabouts, when we created this team, we were very clear that we were about accelerating our digital developments, hence the name Group Digital Development. I think where we are now is the society has a very good, broad understanding of the digitisation opportunity ahead and some of the threats. We've got some great people across the society working to mitigate risks and to deliver those opportunities. I think my role is now about taking things up a gear. It's about ensuring the resources that I have are focused on the future. So what is the emerging technology providing to us for different instances in the banking chain? What are the customer trends and how are these trends being influenced? So my role will be about bringing insight into the organisation about the markets that we operate within, most likely influenced by consumer behaviour outside of retail banking in the UK, so we get a more early warning signal as to where we might need to cast our eyes. And then ensuring that insight is wedded up with internal analytics about what we are doing now and the problems that we are trying to address and the constraints that we have. And then it's really about using our creative talents and our software engineering teams to deliver the solutions that we feel will be relevant for our members and which have a place within the next 2 years and looking probably 3 to 5 years. I think it's really difficult to go further out than 3 to 5 years. Tech is changing so quickly and we see an awful lot of developments that I think will fall by the wayside. So we don't want to be first all the time with our deployments. When we are, it's great, celebrate, it's nice. It's not really the goal. The goal is to get it right. So my team will be keeping the finger on the pulse and assessing where and when we might want to invest and for what outcome in concert with the stakeholders. So it's going to be about innovation. It's going to be about innovation that I think is achievable within the next 3 years, which is responsive to the customer trends, responsive to the member needs, both current and future, and really ensures that we stay relevant. Because there's a danger if you don't do these things, you don't invest in telling the story of the things that you do, people misunderstand and assume that you're lagging behind. And of course that's not what we want and that's not where we are.
Over in London, we spoke with Lewis, who runs FinTech Week, to talk a little about blockchain and FinTech startups.
So FinTech Week, it all depends on who you are. So whether you're an investor, a large bank, a startup, a growing startup that has several rounds of funding, the whole point of it is to meet with other people in the industry and find out what's going on. So it doesn't matter who you are. You could be a student. You could be the chief digital officer of Aviva who's going to be here tomorrow. It doesn't actually matter who you are. The fact is there's something going on. If you want to be a part of it, you can be sitting next to, talking to the people that are running it, regardless of how senior they are or how far along they are in their projects. We also have the hackathon weekend at Thomson Reuters. So this is a blockchain hackathon sponsored by Thomson Reuters, IBM and Lloyds Banking Group. So it's kind of a big deal because blockchain up until several months ago has been considered a Bitcoin virtual currency thing, but now that it's divorcing, that you can use the technology for other things and enterprise are starting to do more with it, there's a lot of attention happening. This is why we're dealing with big companies who want to run a blockchain hackathon in Canary Wharf. So it's kind of a big deal because of who's sponsoring, but also because what happens at some of these things ends up becoming a product in the next sort of 3 to 6 months. So very interesting.
We caught up with Authentics, who were speaking at the event, to hear a little about what they're doing in ID verification.
Authentics is the first and only company on the market that fully automates the process of customer ID authentication and record generation. This means that where most companies lose up to 50% of the potential clients because of friction, time, etc., we accelerate customer onboarding up to 20 times faster. We can broaden the capacity to onboard new clients at the same rate. We can reduce back office work, which is the alternative to what we do, at about 75%, and make the regulators happy because we do KYC authentication, at the same time that we are fast forward onboarding clients. That's a huge difference in the market where today most of it is done manually.
On the subject of verification, we spoke to MeCard to talk a little about their virtual and digital passport to prove your identity online.
Yeah, MyCard is an online identity service that allows consumers to prove they are who they say they are. So think of it as a digital passport or virtual driver's license. It's something that you as an individual can go and get. You can prove you are who you say you are, and we do that by linking you to your online financial accounts so that you can take that and go to a bank, go to a lender, go and do something online where you would normally have to go offline and do that really quickly and easily. So we've got both that, which is a consumer product, and we've got our B2B service called Direct ID now in the market, and both leverage that bank verified identity, that live financial data, a certified bank statement if you would, to allow consumers to do things faster, easier, stronger, purely online. Is just to build up the ecosystem. That's really our focus, is to create a level of trust in the internet that doesn't exist today. And we do that, and as I mentioned, our focus is about really empowering consumers under what the industry is calling Identity 3.0 now. It's something that we've been doing for a few years, really empowering consumers to be able to take their identity, their data, and go and do things with it. But that requires an ecosystem. So whether it's we're working with government and White House in the States, or with banks and so forth in the UK, how do we create that level of trust in the internet that just doesn't exist?
Where do you see within financial services augmented reality fitting?
So I can't think about augmented reality without thinking about virtual reality as well. I think virtual reality is probably going to take off in the gaming sector and probably with simulations, training events, not necessarily retail banking. I just don't understand why someone would want their entire face covered for banking services. I do think augmented reality has a future. We've used this as well. Again, I don't think it's widely known, but in some of our recruitment campaigns, particularly for millennials, you have to offer a little bit of spice, something different. And some of the brochures that we hand out at recruitment fairs, we've used augmented reality. So when the candidates scan the pages of the brochure, video content is released in other media. And what that does is it allows you to offer them something more than words on paper to understand the experience of working for Nationwide from the mouths of people that work here, from some of our grad intake. So things like that I think are quite useful. I think also that we'll see it probably gimmicky at first, offered by a lot of banks. We've talked already about Westpac, I think it was. I think that's a very neat idea, but again it's a little bit gimmicky. So we're seeing the early stages now of institutions playing with this technology and finding what works. And some of it will have appeal because it's interesting. But ultimately the sustainability will be because it solves problems.
Yeah.
I don't think someone has figured out what the problems are yet with augmented reality. There's just some interest in tech, and Microsoft's HoloLens is a good example of that. I think that will probably be quite successful. As I said, my vision on these things is anything that is enhancing the reality around me but not cutting me off from it, I understand. Which isn't to say I'm right. Anything that cuts me off with a mask, I don't get that. And Google Glass, well, that's just an iPhone stuck to the side of your face, checking emails, checking notifications, as Tom Standard has said recently in the event. I completely agree with him.
Coming up on FinTech Finance, we look at branch transformation, as well as all the news coming out of Sibos.